before I even came to Trinidad, which was about a year and a half or so, I heard his name outside in the United States. I followed his writing, and I admired him, and I've agreed with him thus far on everything. There's some, I'm not too sure I'm in total disagreement. I just need to understand his line of thinking because I'm at slight variance with it. We are talking about a report that cost taxpayers over $100 million. So he came in this morning and he said, here, hold this, feel this. And he handed me a book, the Financial Crisis Quarterly Report coming out from the United States. It's only $45 for it. $14, $15, he quickly adds. It's only $15 US. And we don't know exactly how much it costs to put it together, but if they're selling it for this, I would assume it costs them quantumly less. But he brought this in to make a point to me that they can do things in a hurry. They did not pay Mr. Randine $5.8 million, or he was not even in the report, nor Mr. Debadine $4.9 million, so he was not in the report either. So, of course, you know I'm talking about Afra Raymond, don't you? Right. Advocate Afra Raymond, the gentleman who not only speaks, but he puts his money where his mouth is. He's the one who used the Freedom of Information Act to go and find out details about this CLF financial situation, and he's been following it and talking about it. Okay, Afra, thank you so much for coming in this morning again.
Good morning, Rennie. Good morning, listeners, and thanks for having me on board.
You notice he didn't give me his usual smiling voice. You see, I tell you, we disagreement this morning.
It's a serious matter.
It's a serious matter. All right.
And you know, you mentioned the temperature, and this morning being the hottest time right now. So
yes.
Indeed it is. You know, we have a situation where the Commission of Inquiry into CL Financial provided its formal report on the 22nd of June.
Coleman Report, yes.
The Coleman Report. Mm-hmm. The Coleman Report on Hindu Credit Union was provided on the 17th of July, 2014. Mm-hmm. But on the 22nd of June of 2016, the Coleman's report into the failure of CL Financial was provided to the President, and I understand copies were sent later that day to the Cabinet. Mm-hmm. And I understand from statements from Dr. Rowley in the Parliament that the report has been passed to the DPP, mm-hmm. and that effectively they are withholding publication of it at this time. Mm-hmm. And I think the intimation was that we're waiting to hear from the DPP, and quite frankly, I'm not sure how that will work, and I'm fairly skeptical. I mean, one is not privy to the advice that Dr. Rowley had. Obviously, he had advice before he decided to do what he did. One is not privy to that, but one is skeptical because there are so many other commissions of inquiry reports, listeners, that have gone this way, and what has become of them? The Bernard report into the Piarco Airport scandal, some call it the Piarco Airport project. Mm-hmm. That report was submitted to then President Max Richards on the 30th of August 2003. Where's that case? Okay, the off inquiry, that report was submitted to the Cabinet and it was published in April of 2010. That report actually recommended investigation and possible criminal charges against certain office holders. And where's that? Has anybody been charged? And the Coleman report into the Hindu Credit Union, that was submitted to the President, to the Cabinet, and then published on the Parliament website on the 17th of July 2014. Mm-hmm. That is into the collapse of Hindu Credit Union. That was a full 2 years ago, today being the 17th of July 2016.
Mr. Raymond, let me hold you there for a moment.
Where's that? Has anybody been charged with that one?
Let me hold you there for a moment.
If these things are in the queue, mm-hmm. if the Bernard report, the off report, and the Coleman Hindu Credit Union report are in the queue mm-hmm. ahead of the CL Financial report, mm-hmm. are we talking about 20 years? Mm-hmm. What are we really talking about?
You know, one could look at
skeptical without being disrespectful.
Yes, two of the areas you mentioned, mm-hmm. Two of the reports were handed in 2010 and 2014. Do you believe in such a thing as a new dispensation, a new political will to get things done? That is to say, with a change of government, do you think there is a willingness, the political will we talk about all the time, mm-hmm. to push, insist that we get something done with some expediency in dealing with this report? I mean, I have heard you many times, and like I said, we're not even in disagreement, just at various. Mm-hmm. So I am seeking clarity on the area that we want to see something come out of it. Yes. Now, do you think, as is claimed by the DPP, because he did say that even with when the Coleman report started, he was concerned about it interfering with his investigation. Yes. Do you not think making this public runs the risk of compromising what he has to do vis-a-vis following through on criminal charges? Do you see any credence in that in that assessment? I'm
not sure what are the grounds for that sort of assessment. The reason I'm saying that is that some of the key people who had responsibility, let's call it responsibility, for this state of affairs, the key people in government and some of the key people in the CL Financial Group itself never gave evidence to the Commission of Inquiry. So in fact, they deployed their constitutional right to avoid self-incrimination. So they never gave evidence at the inquiry. So in fact, they sidestepped the possibility of their testimony at the inquiry compromising them in the other place. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I'm not at all sure what is being said here. And ultimately, I mean, Rennie, coming right down to the point, $100 million of our money has been spent, and what the money has been spent on is a public inquiry. The purpose of a public inquiry is to inform the public about the events which are of high public concern and wrapped in mystery. Also, the purpose of a public inquiry is to, in fact, unwrap the mystery for the benefit of the public. And I believe that the fundamental purpose could, in fact, be effectively disregarded by the failure or the delay in publishing that report. That's my honest opinion.
There are those who are going to ask the question that I'm inquiring of you. What do you see more beneficial coming out of public disclosure as against the DPP taking it and seeking to bring criminal charges? What benefits do you see coming out of immediately releasing it to the public?
The first thing really is a revelation about the nature and the extent to which our corridors of power are not only engaged in improper conduct, but more to the point, the intent to which they interlock, the extent to which they interlock. So in fact, we have this thing I keep talking about, this so-called political divide. So we have an election and one party is out and one party is in and so on. And I believe that the extent, the nature and extent of the interlocking relationship, some people call it an interlocking directorate, the nature and the extent of the interlocking relationship and the way that these people relate with each other is something that would surprise many people, and the public needs to know. We can't make progress in darkness. We are out of the colonial period. We have to make progress in light and in a question of being edified. And we can't get edified on rumors and old talk. We have to get edified with proper information. We've paid $100 million of our money to get a set of proper information about this matter of high public importance, and I think it really needs to be published. I know that the opposition, United National Congress, made a Freedom of Information application, and I had hoped it wouldn't have to get to that in fact a straightforward attitude of accountability, transparency and good governance would have prevailed and effectively trumped, I hate to use that political pun, but effectively trumped the sort of courtroom considerations. But I really do believe that the report needs to be published.
A man that I admire and I have urged many to emulate. We had slight variance on this because, going back to even the beginning of what you said.
Sure.
You said, I don't know what the Prime Minister saw in the report that prompted him to move it to the DPP. Now, the question is, if the report holds information unknown to us, but will be beneficial in following through, is it not the prudent thing to do in giving the DPP some time? Instead, I would like to hear, you have 3 months to do this, for instance.
Yes.
Is it not more prudent to give him the time to follow through with what he's saying? And from what I read, he is supposed to give his advice to the Prime Minister within 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean, let me give you my response to that point.
Yes.
That's a very important question you're asking there, Rennie. And my response to that point is to say to you that we are dancing. When we talk about that point there, about the Prime Minister setting a deadline for the DPP, and you mentioning a 2 weeks and a 3-month thing and so on, we are dancing with a kind of a negative concept. The DPP is an independent office. The Prime Minister doesn't have the power. Okay, and people who are more learned than me could correct me if I'm wrong. The Prime Minister doesn't have the power to instruct the DPP to do this in 1 month or to do that in 3 months. That power doesn't exist in law.
No, I didn't mean for the Prime Minister to call for it. I said, is it not prudent for us to say we would like to see a result of this in 3 months? We, the public, the citizens.
And this is one of the and let me go a little further. Absolutely. So I just want to make the first point is that I wasn't blaming Dr. Rowley for not giving the DPP that that sort of a strict instruction, because that power doesn't exist in law. He could indicate the matter is urgent, which I think he did in his letter. But I want to go further, because this is one of the real issues with those independent, powerful offices. So you have an independent, powerful office that can investigate or prosecute a matter of high public concern. And in fact, for the office to be independent, it has to sit outside of anybody's control. And there's a reality that, in fact, we can't tell, we, the people, public now, we can't tell that person that we want to see this or we want to see that. So we need to really think about what are the mechanisms we're using to get a result, a tangible result out of the independent office holders who discharge these powerful responsibilities. It's a really serious question. How do we press the DPP, which is really what it is we're dancing with? How do we press him on a matter of the highest public concern when in fact there may not exist lawful mechanisms to press him? I mean, I'm on the radio. I don't mean any disrespect to Mr. Gaspard. I mean, we have a friendly enough relationship. But I'm making the point with some justification that these other serious reports have been there before and we haven't seen anything. So we have a certain justified skepticism about where is this one going to end up in terms of going forward. And the other thing really is that I think the question about us giving 3 months and 2 months, I think we need to be aware that there are other mechanisms available. Let me just pause here to make this point to listeners. There are other mechanisms available. So far, we have been discussing the whole question of, we haven't used the phrase on the radio show, but we've really been discussing criminal prosecutions arising out of likely frauds. And I think the phrase Dr. Rowley used was acts of a kleptocratic. I think the phrase he used was acts of a kleptocratic nature. And I would agree with that phrase. I went to most of the days of the inquiry and I heard a lot of evidence about acts of a kleptocratic nature. But in fact, I think we need to go a little further and understand that there is a lower bar, because the state itself cannot, the government, the executive cannot prosecute someone. That has to go through the DPP and through the police service. But in fact, what the executive can do, the Minister of Finance has the power under the Central Bank Act to give instructions to the Central Bank Governor. The Central Bank Governor has to take those instructions, which is the basis for the dismissal of Rambaran in the end of December last year. If the Minister of Finance has the power to give instructions to the Governor of the Central Bank, and the Governor of the Central Bank has the obligation to follow those instructions, what we need to see as a demonstration of willingness to move swiftly on the CL financial wrongdoing, we need to see an instruction, in my opinion, this is what I'm calling for, we need to see an instruction coming out of Minister Imbut to Governor of Central Bank, Dr. Alvin Hilaire, to ask him to please carry out a review of the said Coleman Report in order to apply the fit and proper rules. So in fact, those people who are named in the Coleman Report, and certainly the people who are named in the terms of engagement of the Commission of Inquiry from November of 2010, those people need to be struck off the list of fit and proper people. We need to demonstrate at some level that we are willing to hold, I know it's Sunday, so let's use a little phrase, the rod of correction to some of those people who have been involved in bringing this disaster upon our society.
And I am hoping that some of these people who brought this disaster on the society be given some new jewelry, because and that is for the that reason. It is for that reason that I am disposed to just wait and let the DPP get some space, do what he's doing, because I want to feel there is a new dispensation. I want to feel there is a willingness, political will we see can get anything done to get this done. That I'm optimistic about. I know that your time is pretty short with us this morning because you are a busy man. I thank you for taking the time to be here. But before you go, there is discussion going on as to the disposing of some of the CLF assets right now. How do you feel about that?
Well, the asset disposals have to be put in a context. First of all, we have to see whether the asset disposals are indeed necessary. We're not going to be able to see that until we have some sight of the accounts of the group, not the individual companies, the group. I'm in court. I won the case against the state to get sight of the accounts. The state has since appealed, and we are going back to court tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock to the appeal court to continue that matter, and there'll be more on that later tomorrow. But more to the point, Rennie, apart from the accounts giving us an idea whether assets need to be disposed of, there's also the question that there's a procedure in the Insurance Act for how assets are to be disposed of. There needs to be a prior valuation by an independent valuator, and there's a procedure laid out in the law, and we need to make sure that procedure is followed as well. And thirdly, the third point I wish to make on asset disposals, Rennie, is that under the terms of the CL Financial Shareholders Agreement, I forget the clause at this moment, forgive me, under the terms of the CL Financial Shareholders Agreement, which was first signed on the 12th of June 2009, asset disposals, the sums raised from asset disposals are to be placed in a specific escrow account. They're not to go into consolidated fund or anywhere for general disbursement. They are to be placed in a particular fund so that they can be preserved and identified by the auditors. So those are the 3 points I wish to make. Firstly, that whether the disposals are necessary at all. Secondly, whether the legal procedures set out in the Insurance Act are complied with. And thirdly, whether the requirements of the shareholders agreement are complied with in terms of the partitioning of those funds into escrow accounts.
The privilege of having the time with you this morning is greatly appreciated. I cannot have you leave without, you said you hit Trump this morning and you did not want to get into anything obscene, but there is an obscene situation here. The over $100 million we're talking about, $80 million was paid in legal fees. There are two attorneys who were who were singled out for incompetence and or inexperience. But these two people, particularly Ramdeen and Dibadeen, received accordingly $5.8 million and $4.9 million respectively. Something has to be done about this. I mean, we are talking about huge money here paid out for folks who are by the leader, by the commission, are called incompetent or inexperienced to the level where they were of no value to the commission.
Yeah. Well, let me just say to you, Rennie, in a rapid rejoinder, because I'm not able to discuss the particulars of legal fees without a tone of envy creeping into my voice. So I'll say something else. I mean, this is Sunday morning, and we have a little time for some humor, because that is the way that we deal with these serious issues as Caribbean people. And a dear friend of mine, I hope he's listening, had this saying. He always said to me over the years of this work, he said to me, Afra, the rest of us, all of us down here, we were taught to believe in the 10 Commandments. You know, thou shalt not kill, you wouldn't covet your neighbor's wife, you would honor your mother and your father and all of that sort of stuff. The 10 Commandments were large in our minds when you're growing up here. And in fact, we have tried so hard to follow the 10 Commandments. But in fact, the ruling class in Trinidad and Tobago and in many parts of the world, they follow the 11th Commandment. And the 11th Commandment is thou shalt not be found out. And this is what we are living when we see the whole appeal against my attempt to get the information on the bailout and the whole Coleman Report not being available to the public and so on and so on. This is what it looks like a lot of times from down here.
We both heard of these amended rules. I heard of number 12.
Go on,
number 12 is always follow the golden rule, but only those with the goal make the rules. Afra, my brother, thank you so much for coming in this morning. You have a nice day as always, all right? 107.7 Afra Raymond, advocate and man who's been following this, one who holds my admiration really strongly. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. 10 minutes away from the top of the hour. We continue with Brunch when we reach.